Well, I can't tell if it's the band is Splashin' Boots that sings Okie Dokie Artichoke, or if the band... No, the band is Splashin' Boots, and they do a song called Okie Dokie Artichoke.
Right, but there's another band called Nino and Zico
official
that does
music
Okie
video.
Dokie.
Right. That looks like a pretty professional video. You're telling me that Splashin' Boots is not cutting edge, looking at just the...
here's a fun fact.
The cut screen.
Okie Dokie Artichoke has been cited in print since at least 1988. Hillary Rodham Clinton, then First Lady, made the term famous in the 1990s when she ended staff meetings with this folksy phrase.
Hey, welcome back to Even More Mashed Up. We are the pop culture podcast featuring two professors talking all things pop culture. I'm Alan.
And I am not pedantic.
Ooh, Pedantic Patrick. We've got a new nickname, I think.
See now hey. you gotta make sure the whole pedantic thing is in the opening, Rich. Otherwise, that joke just makes no sense.
I don't have to do anything.
He's pedantic, and his name is.
But
Pat.
yes,
He's pedantic.
I am Patrick. I'm Patrick. Hello. Okay. I'm Patrick, and today it's another installment of one of our favorite segments on the show, Trailer Park.
Boop boop. Merp merp. Ear.
Your sounds are just so terrible.
That's like Eeyore.
I don't even know what that was.
It's how I do it every time we do Trailer Park. As much as Trailer Park is a tradition.
It's like a Star Wars droid running low on batteries is sort of what that sound is.
Which is somewhat fitting for today's show. But that's part of the tradition of the Trailer Park. Burp, burp, bitty, boop, beep, mark.
Okay, now you're...
Pork chop.
Now you're just making random beeps. Did you just say pork chop?
I don't remember.
Oh, my... It was
that
literally
happened
3
5
seconds
ago.
Oh, my God.
I can't remember that long.
Yeah, so today we're talking about various trailers of upcoming shows that we may or may not be excited about.
That's a fair statement.
Yeah. I feel like there's probably not a ton of excitement for most of these things on your part, Alan.
There's one that I'm pretty excited about. There's one that I'm intrigued in. There's one that I feel like might have been preempted already. There's one that I have a great deal of difficulty working up interest in, and there's one that I'm like maybe slightly more interested than you think I would be.
Okay. So is the one you're excited about Ms. Marvel?
Absolutely. Yeah, of the five that we're looking at today, I think Ms. Marvel has the most promise and is kind of the most interesting of them.
Okay. Is the one you're intrigued by Moon Knight?
You know me well. I think Moon Knight has potential, but I have some concerns about it.
Okay. Is the one that you're completely uninterested in Obi-Wan Kenobi?
It is not, actually.
Oh, I was going to say it's Jurassic Park.
It's Jurassic Park. I'm having trouble working up enthusiasm for Dominion.
See, I thought it would be Kenobi because you've not watched Mandalorian Season 2 or Book of Boba Fett, so it seems like your Star Wars enthusiasm is greatly on the wane.
Well, he might just not be a big fan of bounty hunters.
I'm not a big fan of bounty hunters, as we know from the D&D gaming that we've done. No, Obi-Wan actually sparked a little bit more interest in me than I thought it would. I'm not like gung-ho for it, but like there might be some things in there that looked interesting. And that means Multiverse of Madness is the one that I feel like may have been preempted. Like what might have made it interesting has already been done, and thus might be somewhat less
Spider-Man.
interesting. Yeah, I just feel like, and we can talk about it when we get there, but I feel like the latest Spider-Man kind of did the gimmick that Multiverse was gonna do.
Well, and to be fair, it's a gimmick that, I mean, any number of films seem to be doing. Even sort of the Jurassic Park film is sort of like, hey, let's take the new cast of characters that we've created and sort of, use to reboot the franchise, and let's meet them up with the previous versions of the franchise, which is, you know, Sort of what Spider-Man did. It's what Multiverse of Madness is doing. It's what Flashpoint is going to do. It's what Days of Future Past did.
No, it's 100% true. I think
it's kind of this new. It's sort of where there was something else that was doing it too, and now I can't remember what it was. But it's sort of Ghostbusters. That was the other one that I had, the Ghostbusters Afterlife movie.
Sure.
So it's sort of like, this is sort of where cinema is going right now, which is sort of, let's just kind of shove, the rebooted cast together with the original cast and see how that goes.
And hijinks ensue.
Well, for me, it's this creative kind of bankruptcy that they're just pouring nostalgia down our throats instead. At least for Miss Marvel and Moon Knight, maybe it seems like something kind of new. But so much of what we're getting anymore these days is just grounded in a nostalgia that I don't know. Like it's kind of fun and clever, but it would be nice to see something new.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it does feel like, particularly in the case of Multiverse of Madness, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, some might say that there's a danger that we have crossed beyond peak superhero.
Some have been saying this for quite some time. They've just been routinely mocked and denigrated for having said so.
I'm not sure they've been. I'm not sure they've been denigrated. You're sort of like, or this person is sort of like the boy who cried "No more peak superhero," in that they've been crying it for a long time. But more peak superhero may just be showing up now after they've been saying, "Oh, superheroes are done" for I don't know, however many years we've been doing the podcast. Or
maybe said boy was right, and another random boy is just now willing to join because Hawkeye has been made, and there can be no peak beyond that.
It is possible that someone does sort of feel like they're not as invested in the superhero franchises right now for reasons that are entirely difficult to pin down and not as simple as, they've made films of his favorite characters now, so he's done.
Interesting. And yet when we talked about Hawkeye, said hypothetical boy said almost that exact thing. But, that's...
Did the boy say that? I'm not sure he did.
Oh, he sure did.
So
this is all hypothetical, of course, right? Like it's hard to say, but yes, the boy did in fact say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So where should we start talking about these?
I'm glad you're finally joining me in the post-peak superhero argument. It is a kind of confirmation.
And I'm glad reality has finally caught up to your point.
So let's start with Miss Marvel, because of all of them, it seems like the one that was kind of interesting to me.
Okay.
So,
would you like to expand upon that?
Sure. I love, number one, just the kind of 80s, 90s rom-com feel of the trailer. It starts with kind of like a Juno kind of vibe, like with the lettering, and I kind of like that grounding. Way back when one boy was a big fan of the MCU, the hypothetical boy would often talk about how they were kind of doing genres, right? That what they were doing to keep superheroes fresh was to kind of run us through different genre lenses. And I think Marvel's kind of gotten away from that a little bit. I think part of their post-peak superhero problem might be that. But this felt like an effort to kind of recapture that magic.
Interesting, because I felt the opposite in that
we agree on nothing.
To me, we do, yeah.
We wouldn't have much of a show if you did.
Well, that's true. Well, I mean, we both agree that Hawkeye was an excellent show, so I'm pretty sure that's what I remember us talking about. But yeah, no, I don't know. There was part of it.
That,
yeah, 100%.
It started with the whole, we kind of had like the thought bubbles and the sound effects and whatnot in the trailer that were represented very comic book style.
They did.
And then like, but it only did that for like the first minute or so of the trailer, even maybe not even that. And then that all kind of went away, and it felt, sort of like it was falling into, I a standard kind of MCU kind of narrative and visual representation.
Well, maybe the visual I can agree with, but the way that she's kind of drooling over a boy had kind of an 80s. So I disagree a little bit. I felt like the lettering went away, but some of the motifs that they're kind of referencing did not.
But that's not necessarily new. I mean, the first two Spider-Man films have all been very much based in kind of that 80s teen film.
Yeah, this felt
Homecoming and Far From Home
a little bit different to me. But so I like the idea that at least they're clearly trying to keep identity at the center of the story. I know I'm not the comic book canon guy on the podcast, but obviously the comic book wrestled with race and ethnicity and religion and gender and identity. And that they're going to try to work with that, I think, is potentially interesting. What does she say? It's not really brown girls from Jersey City who save the world. Like that could work.
Yeah. It could. I'm a little bit concerned that the changes they've made to her abilities kind of takes away from the show's ability to do that.
Yeah, so I was confused with that, because I don't know, again, I know the least amount of comic book characters, but from what I understood, Kamala Khan was that, like, she had, like, almost Mr. Fantastic, that she could just, like, stretch and, like, change the shape and not just sort of cosmic powers.
Yes, that is correct. That's how. In the comics, she basically can stretch. She can make, like, herself giant size. She can make, like, her arms really huge. Like, she's able to physically transform.
Right.
So that is weird that they changed it kind of completely.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that, having the powers not be as connected to sort of her physical body is going to make it difficult for the powers as metaphor part of her comic book character and what that did in terms of identity and gender and race and all that. I think to carry through in the series.
Yeah, I think that may be true, but it's also premised on the idea that it has to do identity like the comic book did identity to make it function.
Well,
that it's going to be different. I think is fair. Yeah, it will be different. It was hard for me to kind of tease out her power set as I watched the trailer, to be honest with you.
Well, that's the thing. Like the Green Lantern kind of power set. Like, it is. Well, it's the power.
It's very similar to Green Lantern, and this is the thing that I find interesting in that there's the one shot where she's clearly putting on some kind of wristband, which seems to be where the power is coming from. And so there's a couple possibilities for that from the comics, in that the original Captain Marvel, the male version from the 70s, he had a pair of bracelets called the Nega Bands.
Correct.
That allowed him to fly, gave him super strength, allowed him to shoot blasts and everything like that. But they were just a regular sort of metallic-looking bracelet. They didn't have all of the kind of ornateness to them that the ones she puts on in the trailer. The ones that she puts on the trailer, the thing they look the most similar to are actually the quantum bands that Quasar wore in the comics and were very Green Lantern-like, in that it allowed him to create various shapes. So it's kind of weird. I've seen stuff where they've been referred to as the Nega Bands, but in terms of what they're doing, they seem to be much closer to something like Quasar's quantum bands.
Well, certainly Rich is learning about a lot about superhero characters right now. This is a deep dive and into
really important ones like Quasar, who
I know you're
some
a big
people
fan of
might
Quasar.
Have an extraordinary and not really explicable fondness for.
You wrote to Quasar, didn't you?
Part 2.
What was that?
Didn't you write to Quasar?
I did, yes. I actually I think I had a couple issues published, but I think the first one was published in Quasar number 13. I actually found it the other day while I was going through some of my comic book collection.
So, 2 questions. Quasar actually got to 13 issues.
It got to 60. It ran for 5 years.
Quite surprising. Number 2, do you think did your letters get in because of the quality of the letters or because of the dearth of people writing to Quasar?
The desperation of Quasar to publish something.
I do have to say, the fact that I got 2 letters printed in Quasar, that I know for sure, and maybe there were others, and I'm just forgetting them, does sort of perhaps suggest that there were not as many people writing into the series. When I was on the Oh Gosh, Oh Golly, Oh Wow podcast, I brought up my love of Quasar, and Mav, that's one of the hosts of the shows, was like, "Oh, so you were the other guy buying the series?" Like, yes, that was clearly me.
Yeah. So usually, like, a letter column would have 5 or 6 letters, right?
Yes.
So you're figuring Quasar was getting 6 or 7 a month, maybe.
Yeah, except that I think in the column that I was printed in, there were only 3, because the letters, including mine, tended to be a touch lengthy.
You had a lot to say about Quasar. It wasn't just that you had something to say about Quasar. You had a lot to say about Quasar.
I had a lot to say, and I had a lot of suggestions about the series.
We should read that on air at some point. It would be great.
Yes, that sounds like, yes.
So, Patrick, that
would be a very low prep show for you. But yeah, back to Ms. Marvel.
I had 2 questions for you, and you've answered one. I was going to ask you, are you bothered by the power set change? I'm
not bothered. And I'm sort of reserving judgment, because I agree with you that there are ways they may still be able to tie it to her identity in the way the comic did. It just doesn't seem like there's as natural a connection.
Okay.
And it didn't seem to me like in the trailer there was as much about her identity as I might have expected.
Okay.
Like, there's a little bit, but it really seemed to be about more her character beats seemed to be, she lives in this fantasy land rather than in reality. And so it seemed like it might be going in a different direction. Right.
Although doing so is a really interesting way to potentially explore identity, too. But there's no way, I agree with you, that we can tell from the trailer. Second question I have for you. Does the idea of a really big fan then becoming a hero make you want to pick up a bow and arrow to see what happens?
See, you asked that question.
I want to see what happens.
You asked that question assuming younger me has not already done that.
Well, fair point. Does older you ever think about it? You know, we've got a young Hawkeye now. Maybe we need an older Hawkeye.
No. I think it's possible that I am past my peak superhero in terms of what I'm able to physically do. I would be much closer to Hawkeye as he was in the series, which is pretty much done with everything. So
I'm not sure you're even there, but So, Rich.
Okay, that's hurtful.
If Patrick were to become Hawkeye, like in your fanboy moment, what superhero would you become?
Oh man, I don't know. So many options.
Like,
so many better options.
Like Quasar, for instance. Would you pick Quasar?
I don't know what Quasar. Besides
that's a totally fair answer.
He's Wendell Vaughn, who was a minor S.H.I.E.L.D. agent until
Rich.
He managed to get the quantum bands on during a emergency that had previously killed everyone who donned them. But because he was sort of a easygoing kind of guy, he just naturally adapted to the quantum bands.
Rich, why did you open the door to him for this? Like, this just what hero would you be?
I was going to say Captain America because
there you go.
I love the whole
I'm
shield.
Pretty sure, Alan, you're the one that brought up Quasar in response to Rich's.
Yeah. Well, I thought Alan was saying I should become a publishing company. Instead of the superhero, I just become the person who would print.
There you go.
Ramblings that he sent in.
That's not a terrible idea, but you would be Captain America.
They were not ramblings. They were very cogent analyses of the series,
of what Quasar could be if they only did it. If they only did it right.
Yeah. If they only lived up to their potential.
You just don't understand the potential of Quasar.
Like a mad scientist.
Now, see, I like to think that my letters were more of a more collaborative nature than sort of challenging
I'll show
them.
you. I'll show you all.
No.
I'll start a podcast, and then you'll see.
That's right. Preteen me knows better.
Mm-hmm.
You did write these as a
teen me. This was teen me. This was teen me.
Oh,
Teen.
it gets worse.
Because I didn't really start collecting comics seriously until I was 13, and it was at least a year or two after. I'd have been probably about 15, maybe, when I wrote to Quasar.
Okay. So, do you have anything else on Miss Marvel? I mean, it is trailer park, so we got to keep the semi moving.
People think that because of this movie, they might be replacing Captain Marvel. At least I saw online a bit of that.
No, they're just making a Marvels movie, right?
A while.
Aren't they going to bring them all together?
Marvels, which is going to have, it's supposed to have Brie Larson's Captain Marvel, it's supposed to have Ms. Marvel, and then supposedly it's going to have Monica Rambeau, and whatever she calls herself.
And that might bring a certain boy back to peak superhero, I would say, because said boy loves Monica Rambeau.
I am a big fan of Monica Rambeau, yeah.
All right. Any other comments on the Miss Marvel?
No. Oh, just going back to Rich's question about her powers, and why. Because one of the theories one of the theories for why they're changing the powers is that, with the rumor that they're going to be introducing the Fantastic Four and thus Mr. Fantastic,
they
don't want to have
with stretchy
two
arms.
heroes with the same powers. Yeah, and then the other theory is that, so far the films haven't really been able to do a great job with stretchy powers in terms of like how they look. If you think back to the first two Fantastic Four films,
those were bad.
That's a really bad example, though.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you would think Marvel could do better, but yeah, those
there
are
was
kind
a
of
lot of issues besides just the stretchy arms in those films.
Yeah. So those are kind of the two reasons why people are theorizing that they've changed the powers. I mean, partly too, it does in a way it does more cement her connection to Captain Marvel to have powers that seem much more similar to hers.
Right. I wonder if it's a budgetary thing too. Then, I mean, obviously they're not investing the same amount of money in a Disney Plus show as they are a
No, but they did.
movie.
I mean, they did Elongated Man on The Flash, and it wasn't terrible. You got to think the Disney Plus show has at least the budget of The Flash.
Well, I do remember many a podcast where I made fun of the Flash special effects. So yes, you would think that Marvel could at least match that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, though
Ralph Dibny. I don't miss
so,
that guy at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So, all right. So where should we go next?
I don't care. Am I choosing?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, let's go down the ladder. Let's talk about Moon Knight.
All right.
What's your take on the Moon Knight?
Well, as like so many things, I have a fondness for Moon Knight in that at some point I had like all of his appearances.
Wow.
Yeah, I really regret having sold, his very first appearance in Werewolf by Night 32 a few years back, because that thing is worth money right now.
Everybody feels that, Patrick.
Yeah. I had to sell off a chunk of my collection at some point, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, because it is
yes.
From what the trailers have shown, it is very different from how, or at least it looks like it's different from how Moon Knight was depicted in the comics, particularly regarding the different personalities that he employs. Because in the trailer, we see him largely being referred to as Steven, which is one of the names he went by in the comics. One of his personalities in the comics was Stephen Grant.
Right.
But in the comics, that was very much a Bruce Wayne type Wall Street millionaire that basically funded all of Moon Knight's activities. Whereas in the show, he seems to be a low level museum employee.
Right.
And then there's the one scene in the trailer where he picks up the phone he finds and is referred to as Mark.
Right.
which is the another of the personalities. Mark Spector is who he was before he became Moon Knight, who was a mercenary who was killed in Egypt and then resurrected by the Egyptian god of the moon Khonshu to become his fist of vengeance. So, they seem to be using that. And then there was a third personality, which was Jake Lockley, who was a cab driver that basically he would become, and kind of to be his ears on the street.
To sort of blend into the populace kind of deal.
And then the other thing that's and then Moon Knight was sort of a fourth personality as well. And then the other thing that's interesting is that I looked back at some of the early issues. In the early issues, he didn't have dissociative identity disorder when using these personalities. It was more that in the early issues, there's all these places where like his girlfriend or his sidekick Frenchie would kind of warn him that he was playing with fire in adopting all of these different identities, and nowadays it's much more common to see Moon Knight as a figure suffering from a dissociative identity disorder, which was not the case early on in the comics, at least.
But it seems like they're going full tilt into that for the show.
Yeah. So the character seems quite different in terms of what the personalities are from the comics.
Maybe they thought they had enough, like, powerful people. Like, we need to have more people who are, like, almost failing the job like Spider-Man.
I'm concerned that Alan has fallen asleep while I dissertated on Moon Knight.
Alan, come back to us.
Huh? What? Yeah, no. That was
Come back.
Again, Rich is learning a lot about sort of B and C list.
I zoned out completely.
Again,
heroes.
All that. I didn't.
You've brought up two of my quirkier comic book loves in Quasar and Moon Knight. So, to be fair, you brought this on yourself.
Well, I can't help that they're making Moon Knight, so that is a
yeah. Why didn't you
tough
call
one to
Marvel and tell them?
Well, and I actually might have brought up Quasar originally as well. So,
yeah,
but we've done some deep dives into the quirkier corners of the Marvel universe that I explored.
Yes, yeah. For me, a show that's kind of exploring mental illness seems interesting, but also very dangerous. It's very rarely done well. Now, I mean, I think Oscar Isaac is obviously great. He looks like, the role suits him. But I just like that's one of my concerns. Would it be great to have a show that really explored mental health in a sophisticated, nuanced way? It would. My concern for Moon Knight is that the entire trailer is just so dark. And I get that Moon Knight is a very dark character, and he's often been mischaracterized as the Batman of the Marvel universe, but he does have that kind of he has a Batman-esque darkness about him.
He does. I mean, in a lot of ways, he's actually a much darker, more violent character than Batman, particularly in kind of the 70s and 80s when he's sort of first created, and Batman is still kind of in that pre-Dark Knight Returns sort of superhero mold.
Right, as Marvel was really developing like dark characters in the 80s. I don't know, like I wonder if this is going to be too dark. Maybe Marvel wants to build up a darker corner of its universe. It's certainly appropriate to the source material. But I just wonder if it's a little dark. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, it'll be interesting because it's interesting because one of the things I thought about is Moon Knight as a series and a concept is probably closer to the Netflix characters.
Right.
In tone and everything. And
that's a nice comp.
It is, it's and I find it interesting that, it's right before Moon Knight drops that the Netflix characters get ported over to Disney Plus. So I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe see some of the Netflix characters popping up in the series, or if they do kind of what was it? Midnight Suns was, in the late 80s, 90s, that was kind of like the group name for all the supernatural characters. And we've got, Moon Knight, Blade is showing up in the movies.
The Black Knight.
Black Knight. So it's possible there might be they might be developing kind of the kind of darker / more horror elements of the Marvel Universe, which is another thing that Moon Knight, I think, has going for it, is that it does have the potential to move towards another genre, which we haven't seen a lot at Marvel yet, which is horror.
No, that's true. I read somewhere, too, that they were talking about a Werewolf by Night.
Well, there's going to be a Werewolf by Night Halloween special, like a one-shot thing. And I think there were rumors of, either Blade or Moon Knight possibly showing up in that, so...
Yeah. So, maybe it will work and maybe it will be good, but it looks pretty dark. And to me, Miss Marvel is an easier lift for casual fans. Like, her geekdom is based in superheroes and Avengers that everybody knows, right? But I was reading some of the Moon Knight publicity stuff, where they write he was been thrust into a deadly war of the gods against the backdrop of modern and ancient Egypt. That kind of story layered on to that, dissertation you just gave us on the Moon Knight character and who he is and kind of how he developed over time. It feels like Moon Knight might be a pretty big lift for the more casual fan.
Yeah, well, I have to say, like, even knowing Moon Knight as I do, having watched the trailer multiple times, I have no frickin' clue what's going on in this series.
Yeah.
I mean, on the plus side, it's a trailer that doesn't give away kind of what is going on. But yeah, it does seem like it's about as out there conceptually as Marvel has gone. And so, I don't know... I agree. It's one that I don't know the casual fan will pick up right away because it looks very strange.
And there's a lot to figure out in it. Yeah. Hey, are you happy with the casting of Ethan Hawke?
I suppose. I mean, he's playing a very obscure character from Moon Knight. I mean, he's a character that literally appeared only in one issue and has never appeared again. The Arthur Harrow character, and also who in the comics was nothing like what he seems to be in the show. In the show, he appears to be some kind of like new age cult leader.
Right.
In the comics, he was a scientist that was basically continuing on work that had been developed at Auschwitz in pain management / pain theory, basically making it so that people like himself, because in the comics he had like a horrible facial disfigurement that caused him constant pain. He was basically trying to figure out how to cause people not to feel pain. So and he's from the second Moon Knight series, which only lasted 6 issues, and is generally hated by Moon Knight fans. So it's an odd choice to go with him.
Yeah.
On the plus side, it does at least, because Moon Knight does have some pretty significant continuing villains. So if the show does prove successful, they haven't really tapped into Moon Knight's rogues gallery in the way that other films. It's like, okay, like Aquaman sort of used up all of Aquaman's villains in the first film.
Right. I read a rumor somewhere that he might be a vampire.
Oh, Hawk's character?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I hadn't seen that.
I have no idea. I know nothing about the character. He also said he was basing the character on David Koresh, which is that's
an
interesting acting choice.
The cult vibe that you get from. I mean, even from what little we see of him in the trailer, it seems like the only thing he's got in common with the comic book character is the name. So, it doesn't really seem like, I could go back and read Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu #2. It's not going to really help me figure out anything that's going on in the series with the Harrow character. So, well,
anything else on the Moon Knight? We still got 3 to do.
I am excited to see that we're getting the Mr. Knight version of Moon Knight, which is a fairly recent development, which is basically Moon Knight in a suit, as opposed to the big cape and cowl.
Right.
You know, Mr. Knight is kind of what he appears as now, and there's like a great deal of popularity amongst the fans. So it looks like we're getting that version, so that's cool.
But we do see the old suit as well, right?
We do, yeah. Or something close to the old suit.
Right.
Because in the comics, it was just your typical spandex suit. It wasn't like the weird mummy wrap that we sort of see coming on and off of him.
Right.
So, but yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, I guess I am, but we'll see. I have some concerns about it.
So, to be fair, you are going to watch Ms. Marvel when it comes out in June. You are going to watch Moon Knight when it comes out next week.
Those are my plans.
Okay, that's not the stridently affirmative position I was kind of hoping for.
I mean, you know, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm like the guy who put on the Quasar bracelets. I'm just so laid back, you know, like it could not work. Who's to say?
Yeah, you're like the guy on the pop culture podcast. You're like the guy on the pop culture podcast that doesn't watch like the big things in pop culture when they're happening.
That's interesting
why
because
don't you watch the big things? It would be to watch the niche stuff that people other than cover.
It would be like, wouldn't it be great if we could talk about, I don't know, what we do in the shadows, which one of us has watched and one of us hasn't. Just an observation. Hey, how about that Multiverse of Madness?
Yes, how about it?
Does Doctor Strange's hair ever bother you? Like the white streak just looks so faked to me.
Yeah,
I don't know. It does look like he dyes it every morning. It does look like every morning he's up there, like dyeing it in to make sure it looks just right.
Yeah. You know, being in the MCU ages you.
No. I'm happy for him to be aging or aged. I want it to look real, not like he just like took white paint and streaked it down the side of his head.
Yeah. It's less Silver Fox and more like I'm going to a rave.
Well, wait till we get Reed Richards and he has the white sideburns.
I'm not against the white sideburns. I just want them done well. I think for all the money they've invested in the Doctor Strange franchise, the hair could use a little work. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, maybe there's just not the money for hair, given that they've invested it elsewhere.
I guess so. I mean, it's a lot of special effects, but I just feel like the hair shouldn't be that hard.
Yeah. So you were sort of lukewarm on Multiverse of Madness, as I recall at the top of the show?
Yeah, my question for you is, like, do you think the recent Spider-Man film kind of diminishes some of the Easter eggy joy that this film wants to deliver? It's like almost like Marvel preempted itself in that way for me.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is that Doctor Strange was actually originally supposed to come out first, and then COVID disrupted its production to the point where it came out second, and they've had to reshoot and rework the story.
Because of his dumbass choice to help Peter Parker, right? I hope that wasn't part of the original storyline.
Well, no, originally I think Multiverse of Madness was going to happen, and then you were going to get whatever was originally going to happen in No Way Home.
Right.
Yeah, I guess you could argue like No Way Home would have happened more accidentally from what Doctor Strange was doing than him, like
or
actively
whatever
and changing reality.
Whatever brought the multiverse into the Spider-Man movie may not have been a product of like Peter and Doctor Strange's stupid decision, but would have already been kind of the mechanics would have already been established. So yeah, it is.
Which would have been nice.
No, that's it. I agree with Rich. Like that's always going to bother me that all of this is happening because the Doctor made one really stupid choice to help Peter Parker.
Well, and not even a stupid choice, because technically the choice would have worked, but then, they had to do a little whoopsie.
Right.
And then be like, if it technically would have done it and it wouldn't have been a good idea.
But if that's a solution, they would use it. They would use it all the time and on problems bigger than Peter Parker, probably. I don't know. It's always going to bug me.
Yeah.
I think it would have been better to have the multiverse come first and set up a more kind of authentic feeling crisis that then spilled over into Spider-Man.
Yeah. Though I will say, and this is something that maybe this, I don't know if this will help or not, it does sort of fit into, when we talked about the first Doctor Strange movie on this podcast, we talked about how the Doctor Strange Mordo conflict was similar to the Iron Man Cap conflict, with Cap as Mordo in the sense of being the unrelenting, unwilling to bend type character.
Right.
Which makes Doctor Strange the Tony character who does things without really thinking them through, thinking that they'll be good. Creating Ultron would be the big example of that. So I can kind of see this as working in that, Doctor Strange, in terms of Spider-Man No Way Home, did something reckless without really thinking through the consequences of it fully.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
And even ignoring Wong's advice of, don't cast that spell, in the same way that Tony didn't talk to anyone about, should I create Ultron? Is that a good idea? So I can see it kind of working in his character that way, in that he does kind of make the same kind of character mistakes that Tony made.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably true, but I don't know. It's kind of boring and unimaginative at best. Like, he has to be an analog for Tony. I don't know. It just, there's nothing you can do, unfortunately, to convince me that I'm always going to be disappointed in that. It's a classic post-peak superhero problem.
Then I guess I just won't try.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
As I recall, you did not love the special effects of the last film that Doctor Strange starred in. Did you see anything to change your mind here?
I was not as overwhelmed by them because they seemed very Inception-y in the last film.
Absolutely.
But so are you saying they were not good quality, or they just were a type you didn't like?
They're just unoriginal, as I remember.
I just didn't like. Everyone's like, "Ooh, the special effects are amazing." I'm like, and I went to the film like, "Yeah, we saw this in Inception." Like, it wasn't that they were bad or low quality. It just, particularly for coming from the source material and Ditko's artwork, it didn't really seem to live up to the imagination of what Ditko did in the comics.
So does this look any better to you?
It does. I think part of that is Sam Raimi being involved as director.
Okay.
That Raimi, again, he's someone who comes from a horror background originally. I do see at least some hints in the film that the effects might be a little bit more psychedelic in the ways that Ditko were, and I have faith in Raimi to, he's established enough of as a director that he's not necessarily going to have to mimic something that we've already seen. So yeah. I'm cautiously optimistic that Raimi helming the film will push things further, but we'll see.
Yeah, sure. You can only tell so much from the trailer. Are you excited to see a dark Doctor Strange?
Well, we already saw a dark Doctor Strange in
It's true.
What If.
In the What If, yeah.
And I know you were particularly underwhelmed by that version of Doctor Strange.
I thought it was the weakest of the What If episodes.
Yes.
But was that because of Evil Strange, or because of the way they handle, how it's just because it was sad and, depressing as the ending?
It wasn't this. I don't mind a sad, depressing ending. I just thought it was. I don't know. I don't remember anything that I thought was well done in it. I mean, having a dark version of the hero is a very comic booky kind of thing to do. Mm-hmm. So I'm not opposed to it. I didn't think it was executed particularly well in What If, and that might be coloring my level of excitement for a dark Doctor Strange in the MCU proper.
Yeah. Well, supposedly we're getting that version of Doctor Strange from the What If in this film.
Right. Yeah.
So,
if this film is just being made to justify What If, I will be.
And WandaVision.
Probably.
Well, that I don't mind.
I imagine to a point that's going to be.
Yeah, WandaVision I don't mind.
Yeah.
So I have one more question. How excited should I be that Professor X is in this?
He's in this?
Oh yeah, in the trailer, there's a scene where Doctor Strange is appearing before some sort of court or something,
like a council.
And you hear a voice say something like, we should tell him the truth, and Patrick Stewart has confirmed that it is him.
So that's there's the X-Men into the It's just straight up multiverse.
He's in it. There's rumors that we're going to see a Tom Cruise playing Tony Stark. As like another version of, Tony from the multiverse.
That's what we need, is more versions of Tony.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So is this, some are speculating that this is like a multiversal Illuminati?
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well. I mean, if you look at the, there's a shot in the trailer where you see like the chairs and people sitting them in shadow. Mm-hmm. And you can see someone walking, like pacing in front of them, and based on the hair, and he's got a staff sticking out from him, a lot of people think that's Mordo, because the hair looks very much like Mordo's hair when we see him in the trailer. But yeah, that's one of the theories, is that we're going to have a multiversal Illuminati, that we're going to have, Professor X is going to be on there.
Yeah.
The Tony or the Tom Cruise version of Tony Stark will be on there. Maybe we get a version of Mr. Fantastic as well, because he was part of the Illuminati in the comics.
Right.
So I always enjoy seeing, Patrick Stewart's Professor X.
Sure, of course. Very nostalgic.
Stuff. But I'm not sure this is going to be a way to introduce the X-Men into the MCU.
I mean, it feels like it'd be a perfect opportunity.
It will, but then you've got the issue of like, well, then they're not really introducing like mutants that were in the original MCU. They're mutants from an alternate universe, and it gets all kind of
yeah, but it also kind of justifies why we never heard about them. Again, Thanos, the whole situation, like the Internals not helping, like same question with the X-Men. Why wouldn't they be around helping at least a little bit?
Yeah, I just, that's getting very comic booky in a way that I don't know that film audiences would respond to basically have, it's one thing to have the multiverse and to like bring different versions of Spider-Man that people know together. But to bring in a whole new group of X-Men that are likely going to be played by completely new actors and use that as a way, I don't know if that will work. That's something they can do in the comics that I don't know would work as well in film.
And I wonder, too, if like this movie might have a little too much insider baseball already. Like with Minotaurs and references to relatively obscure.
You mean Rintra?
Rintra, yeah, who is apparently Revalian, some kind of race of Minotaur. Yeah, I don't.
I just know. Yeah, he was Doctor Strange's like apprentice in like the 90s, early 2000s, I think. So,
but apparently Shuma Gorath is in it too.
He's not called Shuma Gorath.
What's he called?
I can't remember, but apparently Marvel never got the rights to Shuma Gorath. They're calling him something else because. They've come out with the Lego set. They've come out with the Lego set of him, and he's not called that. He's Gargantos or something like that.
Yeah,
or Gargano, something like that. Yeah,
Lego spoils it all.
They apparently don't have. Yeah, they apparently don't have. Well, you see it in the trailer, so it's not really spoiling much. It's the big one-eyed, globby monster that they're fighting. Any thoughts about the film?
Goroth. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. Any thoughts about the debut of America Chavez in the film?
That was actually next on my list. I'm excited to see her, and I feel like the Young Avengers must be coming, right? And that would be would that revamp or
Young Avengers,
rekindle your interest?
Yeah.
Would that rekindle your interest if they did that?
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Because we've got a lot of like young teen superheroes running around. We got America Chavez, we got Ms. Marvel, Tommy and Billy potentially from WandaVision, Kate Bishop. Right. You even had Eli, who was Patriot in Young Avengers, briefly set up in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So,
right,
that definitely seems like a direction they could go in, and that would that's something we haven't really seen yet in either the MCU or the DCEU, which would be like the teen superhero team.
Right. Yeah, the DC hasn't
that could.
The DC hasn't done a Teen Titans is kind of shocking, actually.
Well, I mean, they've done the Titans series on HBO Max, and to call it a garbage fire is sort of insulting to garbage fires. So,
well, they wouldn't do it well, but I'm talking about on the big screen. Like if nostalgia plays, the George Perez, like 80s style Teen Titans would do very well, one would think.
Yeah, I don't understand why Marvel or why DC in the comics keeps trying to reboot. Like they've got the current Teen Titans Academy, which is basically, all the established Titans sort of teaching a new generation of heroes. And I'm like, no one wants to see the new generation of heroes. We want the Wolfman Perez version.
That's
like,
all
why
people
you keep
want.
Not giving us the all people want is the Wolfman Perez version. Like, why you keep trying to make other versions of the Titans happen, I do not understand.
It's a mystery.
That's what people want. They want Nightwing and Starfire and Troya and Cyborg and Changeling and Raven.
Yep. That's good by me.
Kid Flash, maybe like that. That's what they want. Like that's.
I don't really need
Titans
Jericho. Yeah. Maybe a little Terra though.
No, they did Jericho in the Titan series as well, and shockingly, they did not do him well.
I've never seen really Jericho done well. How do you feel about Wanda's position in this trailer?
I'm intrigued because, the first trailer where we just saw her, like, talking to Doctor Strange in the field made her seem much more like an ally. Right. And then the second trailer where she's like, you break the rules and they call you a hero. I break the rules and they call me a villain doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
She seems much more in a I wouldn't necessarily say villain, but antagonistic role, kind of like Mordo.
Right. Yeah.
And supposedly we're maybe getting the zombie Scarlet Witch from the zombie What If episode.
Yeah.
This might be popping up. I hope they don't kill Wanda. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see her because it seemed like she was more of an ally. And in the recent trailer, she seems to be much more of an antagonist. So I'm curious to see where this goes and how it fits in, because I can see, like, in terms of the trailer, like, I get Doctor Strange, having, opened the door to the multiverse. I can see how Mordo would fit into that, because from the previous film, he's already upset that Strange uses his powers recklessly. I can see the Illuminati kind of fitting into that as like, trying to maintain the timelines or whatever. How Wanda fits into the film, I'm not entirely sure of. So I'm curious to see what they do with her and what they do to pick up on where WandaVision left her. So,
right. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do her justice.
I hope so.
So I had a couple other small things, but we should move on, right? We need to cover.
Yes, it is about an hour.
Yeah. So in the Riverdale quiz ran a little bit long, so we should
2 hours.
Try to discipline ourselves. Could we hit Obi-Wan real quickly?
Sure.
All right. Well, as you noted at the top, I've pretty much checked out of the Star Wars Disney Plus stuff. Watched season 1 of The Mandalorian. Didn't move me in any way. Mm-hmm. Apparently, you tell me there's been a couple of shows that have come since then that I have paid like zero attention to. Short Rogue One, which I love just as a film, not as a Star Wars film, but I think it's a really good film, and I adore that film. I haven't been that engaged, but I have to admit, Obi-Wan, like, it doesn't look that bad to me. I can at least place it in the correct story orbit, which helps. Like, the Star Wars universe is so sprawling, I don't think I have, the fanboy level of knowledge sometimes. But, like, I can kind of see where this fits, and it's kind of an interesting story, I guess, thinking of, Obi-Wan's years on the run, trying to keep quiet and protect Luke. I think it could work, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's a period that's gone, I think, with the exception of the, 4 or 5 seasons of the Star Wars Rebels animated series. I think that's the only series that's been... Yeah, I've watched the first season and it's good, but I need to get back to it. It's a good series. But that's really the only one that's explored kind of this period between the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire and what it was like with the Empire in power. So it is a time frame that's largely unexplored. I of course love Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan, so I'm always happy to see more of that.
Absolutely.
Again, you have to suspend a certain amount of disbelief in the fact that, the plan to hide Vader's son with his uncle, or with his stepbrother, I think is what it is, on the planet, that Vader grew up on, still with the last name Skywalker. Like, how it took any amount of time to find them seems really kind of ridiculous.
Perhaps the Grand Inquisitor could be better at their job.
Yeah. It's also interesting that I just always go back to, the very first, the first Star Wars film when Luke is talking about Tatooine. He's like, oh, well, if you're looking for the place that's furthest from where anything happens, you found it. And every series goes back to Tatooine. Like, Obi-Wan is on Tatooine. We went to Tatooine. We've gone to Tatooine multiple times in Mandalorian. We go there in Clone Wars. Like, Jabba the Hutt is in Clone Wars. Jabba the Hutt is part of this massive gangster family. I'm like, how is Tatooine any way remote when we keep going back there? Like, it's this weird thing. I'm like, Tatooine is not remote. Like, everything kind of happens on Tatooine.
You could argue maybe that Tatooine isn't completely under the Empire's control, and that's why there's crime stuff there. Fine. But it's still busy as all heck.
Yeah, well, but the other thing, too, is they're like, Tatooine is sort of ignored by the Empire. I'm like, really? Because we're there a lot for something that the Empire ignores.
You think the Empire would start putting bases down there when enough things happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I feel that. Do you think that...
Yeah, I'm hoping, Sorry, I was going to say,
go ahead.
I'm cautiously optimistic for the show because, I enjoyed Mandalorian Season 2. Book of Boba Fett I just found kind of an interminable slog.
I'm glad I didn't watch it if that's how you felt about it then.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. I would like you to watch it just because I think you would have absolutely hated it, and your rage would probably be fun to deal with. But
you watch this, you'll hate it.
Like, even if I didn't like Book of Boba Fett, or was somewhat underwhelmed by Book of Boba Fett, I can only imagine your reaction. So
it does seem problematic.
I'm hoping Kenobi gets us back to better stuff because Book of Boba Fett just was not their best work.
I'm glad I missed that one then. There's only two things that make me somewhat leery of watching this. Mm-hmm. Number one, the writing that like being a Jedi is like having an itch. I feel like you could do better. I feel like you could write that better. Number two, this is one that really bothers me. There's clearly a callback to pod racing, right? When Luke is sitting on the roof, and I got to be honest with you, I think I'm pod raced out. In fact, I was pod raced out about halfway through the first of the how many pod races that were actually in the prequel.
There was only one.
There was only one pod race?
Yeah, it felt...
Did it run for like 30 minutes?
They did 3 laps. So, there was 3 laps of the one race. So
we don't see other people pod racing at some point in that movie? I feel like that movie has nothing but pod racing in it. When I remember that movie, all I remember is pod racing.
They hang out at like
there is a lot.
Cars.
I mean, there's the building of pod racers. There's the gambling about pod racers. There's the actual pod race.
There's what's it, Sebulba, like how he's a villain or something,
if this is going to have pod racing
around.
I might tap out.
I'm hoping that that's just a semi-nostalgic, oh, look, Luke is pod racing, which is what, his father Anakin did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping there's not a lot of Luke in, young Luke in the series, so.
If there's an episode involving pod racing, I can't. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll find out. But yeah, I'm
yes.
The trailer doesn't really give a lot away in terms of we already know from Rebels that the Inquisitors were out there looking for whatever Jedi remained. So,
Yeah.
That plot line's been well established. So, but yeah, I'm curious. I'll of course watch it because,
What else am I going to do?
I have no
watch it?
standards for what I watch. So,
Agreed on all counts. Well, that leaves us just Jurassic Park, right?
Jurassic World. It's Jurassic
sorry.
World Dominion.
I mean, it's Jurassic Park. It's a different title, but it's the same story.
Jurassic Park was the original series, the original cast of characters. Jurassic World is the new batch.
Well, you're going to be
now
mad.
They have the original characters in this one,
That's
so
right.
it's still basically Jurassic Park.
Okay, that makes me feel better, Rich, because my notes
Jurassic
just
Park World.
my notes just read that this looks very Jurassic Parky.
Oh
Because it's on an island with dinosaurs.
And every
It's the
scene
original cast.
of Chris Pratt interacting with dinosaurs, it's just, was there anything that felt new in it?
Oh God, no! Like there's nothing there, and to be honest, I have no expectations of anything new. Like this,
Right?
This I agree with. This
Always
film
a good
is
thing with
just
a film. I expect
this
no
film
kind of
is just
originality.
100% nostalgia. It's ooh, let's bring the Chris Pratt and that group of characters, together with the original cast of characters. It's like, okay,
I think the pitch session went exactly like that. What we're going to do is we're going to let Pratt be Pratt, and we're going to bring the old people back.
yeah.
I'm shocked it took them this long to do this.
See, but
That's a
here's
fair-
the fun
that's a
thing.
fair
I
point,
realize
Rich.
I'm shocked they had this much patience to wait until, the third movie
Yeah.
in the new thing, or the fourth? I don't know. I've never seen any of these.
it's the third. Because that's the other thing that I found is there's the scene. In watching the trailer, there's the whole thing where you hear sort of, I think Chris Pratt is talking. It says something about, if they find her, they'll take her, and we have to protect her. And it's like
about Blue.
Well, that's the thing. It makes it seem it's about Blue, but let's not forget that the last film revealed that there's the little girl who's the clone, and we see her in the trailer, and it may actually be her. There was the little girl or the grandfather cloned of his daughter.
Oh my Lord, there is so much.
Why not?
There is so much.
Human cloning is not the biggest issue you have.
There is so much of the previous movie that I don't remember. I just remember dinosaurs.
Yeah, there's the whole. I just remember the whole cloning storyline being really stupid. I'm like, oh God, is that what we're picking up? Because you're right, Rich, in that the trailer makes it seem like they're talking about Blue and Blue's baby. Because apparently the dinosaurs have found a way to reproduce. Because life finds a way.
Which, okay, fine. Like
nature
I can
dominates
understand that
us.
being the big. Yeah, I can understand that being the big reveal. I forget what Jeff Goldblum's character's name is, but he's
Ian
right.
Malcolm.
Malcolm, he's right. They have found a way to bring life, and it's that's a big deal because I guess they also just live in the wilderness too.
Well, that was because that was the thing
in
at the
snow?
end. At the end of the last movie, because I remember we talked about this. At the end of the last movie, the dinosaurs all get out, and there's the shot of the raptors overlooking some suburban town, and that's how the film ends, and it's this very triumphant moment. I'm like, oh, those raptors are gonna do some damage in that town. This is not.
But then
good.
they're gonna die. I
don't know. I would enjoy.
Look.
If you gave me Jurassic World Dominion and it was just the dinosaurs just killing everybody, I'd be totally fine with that.
But that's what it feels like.
Do you think there's
a time jump?
Is there?
It's not just and they're all dead.
Is there any percentage chance that just the dinosaurs win at the end of this? That's the only thing that might. That's the only thing that I think might redeem it. That's it.
Yeah. It's the same
idea.
idea.
I agree. That's what I want to see. I want to see the It's basically nature getting back at mankind for the way it messes with stuff. That's what I want to see. That's not what we're gonna see.
I have a feeling you're going to be disappointed.
I hate to break it to you. Most of the dinosaurs would die in the snow because they're cold-blooded.
Because you know what's going to happen. It's not even going to be about the stupid dinosaurs. It's going to be about the stupid clone girl.
It's going to be like Transformers,
And it's going to be this
giant
whole
robots, but now we have humans we're going to, talk about.
They're chasing. We duped you into thinking this was going to be a Jurassic Park dinosaur movie, but no, we're picking up on the plot thread about clone girl.
Because clearly you don't want to see anything about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a movie I could probably do without overall.
Yeah. So here's a question for you, Alan, because we talked about how this is kind of the new thing in film is you bring the reboot cast together with the original cast. What other film franchises might be ripe for this kind of reboot and then reunion?
Oh wow, that's an interesting kind of question.
I've got a couple.
Okay,
I've got one that's almost a no-brainer.
I think you're thinking about Deliverance.
No, I'm thinking Back to the Future.
You know that you immediately made my brain hurt trying to imagine how that would actually function. That's an interesting idea.
But Back to the Future is one.
Is it?
Modest
so you
kids.
Create a new. So you'd have a new cast.
Yeah, well, they're talking about rebooting Back to the Future.
Yeah,
it'd be like Ghostbusters, wouldn't it? It'd be like
that's gone over so well, right? Right, that's the thing. Like you always have, I'm sure. It always has to be the kids of, and that just doesn't. It just doesn't function for me.
Because
Rocky's already done it. Yeah. So what's your second one, Patrick?
The other one I thought about, which is maybe not as good, but Gremlins.
Oh,
Gremlins.
Like it's been long enough since Gremlins.
What about
long enough because nobody wants to see more Gremlins?
Are we thinking about 80s franchises then? So like the Lost Boys?
Well, I'm trying to think of one. I'm trying to think of ones that have been around long enough that you could do a reboot.
And I guess had multiple movies, so you've got some like quote unquote lore
or at least had or that had some kind of like affection.
Right. Well, I mean, Top Gun has just done that, right? So like. Top Gun would be off the list because they just did.
Top Gun,
they haven't because that hasn't come out yet, has it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in the can somewhere though, right? So
yeah.
So Top Gun has been done.
I mean, the opposite one they could do is they could do the different versions of the Fantastic Four. Like you'd have the Jessica Alba Fantastic Four with the
oh man,
the really terrible one.
I am totally in for that, but
Chris
there's
Evans
no way.
On like. Chris Evans is acting against himself as like Captain America and the Human Torch.
Well, you could reboot The Godfather. I mean, God knows we need more gangster films.
Oh man, it's been long enough.
How about War Games? You could do War Games.
Well, that seems a little too on the nose right now. I mean.
Oh, hey,
Red
Dawn
was rebooted, but you could...
That's what I was just going to say. I was just going to say Red Dawn.
Think about a Red Dawn. You could use the Josh Peck crew plus, the original crew. Like a little Sheen, a little Peck. Swayze. Right, you'd have to go Sheen and Peck.
Patrick Swayze, though.
Well, actually, Sheen dies at the end of that movie, too.
In the movie, then they can put Swayze in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like
with digital effects, nobody truly dies anymore.
Stallone keeps cranking out Rockies and Rambos, so that kind of obvious '80s franchising
and
wouldn't
Expendables
work.
And whatever,
right.
Yeah.
How about like a Saturday Night Fever?
Oh, geez, yeah, that'd be hard. Like it would have to be like. Because that would be, I mean, Saturday Night Fever was like the disco movie, so it would have to be like. I mean, the equivalent to that today would probably be like TikTok.
I don't know what his kid would be doing, but it would definitely create generational tension.
Well, it wouldn't be his kid; it'd be like his grandkid.
Well, I guess it would be at this point. Yeah, his whatever relative.
The grandkid who's not into disco, the grandfather who's still way too much into disco.
Yeah.
And they find a way to make a hugely successful TikTok that blends both of their interests.
It literally writes itself.
Just one.
It does. I just wrote Saturday Night TikTok.
Yeah. That's not bad. That could,
or TikTok Fever.
I think TikTok Fever's better. Yeah.
Or Saturday Night Talk.
Well, why don't you you could redo Grease across 3 generations now, right?
I mean, they did Grease. They did Grease 2 that was with a completely different.
Yeah, it's like there's a sequel.
You got Grease 2, now you got Grease 3. It's like,
here you go, Alan. You do
West Side Story.
I was just going to say West Side Story. Bring the 2 West Side Stories together.
Right?
Well, you could, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the enthusiasm. You could.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah.
But yeah. That's all I've got for Jurassic Park, because I'm
It's
the first Jurassic Park movie was really good, and everything since then has just been sort of fallen short.
Because it's been very derivative, right? Like, it's one of those movies that
it has been.
Once it knows what it is, that's what it does.
Jurassic World, the first one that brought in Pratt and all the other characters, was at best really, really dumb and, maybe sort of fun in spite of it, but fun and dumb is about as good as the Jurassic Park sequels have gotten.
It's kind of just a Pratt vehicle as opposed to a movie.
Actual franchise,
yeah. So I'm not, we'll see what happens. But yeah, this does seem like, a massive sort of cash grab.
I think
people
that is
the original Jurassic Park. People love Jurassic World and Chris Pratt. Let's bring them together, and it's basically a license to make money.
That's right. And it probably will. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you got to figure,
making a third one if they're not making money.
What, Laura Dern and, Jeff Goldblum and, I'm forgetting the other guy that plays
Sam. Sam.
Yeah.
Was that?
Neill, right?
Sam Neill, that's right, yeah. They'll bring, sort of a certain,
They'll pull in the sort of nostalgia.
Quality.
Like, they're back again.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Goldblum's going to Jeff Goldblum, so you know what you're getting there. It'll probably be fun. And, I'm expecting it to be fun and stupid. So
I think fun and stupid is.
It's just a question of to the extent that they really center on the clone plot, that might be too stupid, so that the dumbness takes away from the fun.
Well, because that's going to be trying to be smart that turns out to be stupid instead of just leaning into stupid. And sometimes you got to just lean into the stupid.